All right. Welcome back to the Friday Night Prepper pre-party show. Let's just get right into it. Hope you all are having a great Friday night. Well, you know what? I got a couple announcements I got to do before we get right into it. Sorry. And that'll give people a chance to get the notifications out. And anybody that likes to watch the ads, always appreciate that. And first things first. So as we are slowly inching our way closer to 5,000 subscribers, I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers. If you've subscribed recently, don't be shy, leave a comment or pop into chat. Let me know who you are. I really like to get to know the audience. I always answer every comment or I read every comment. I answer as many comments as I can. Probably about 95% of comments I answer. So I like to have a very interactive audience and show here, basically. Real quick, couple things. If you're brand new to the show, if you're brand new to the channel, try to be kind to mods, please. They give their time freely and they are not paid. If you have any disagreements or anything like that, you're certainly welcome to. I welcome a little bit of debate, as long as you're not being racist or sexist. If you're being racist or sexist, mods have permission to put you in timeout or kick you out of the chat or whatever else needs to happen. But that being said, pretty much, anything else you want to say is welcome to a certain degree. Don't get on here and start threatening people or anything like that. That will get me in trouble too. So I will have to do something about that if you do that. That being said, if you're brand new to the channel and you like what you see, please consider subscribing. If you get anything of value tonight, please consider giving a thumbs up. I think that's about it for housekeeping. Oh, no, a couple more quick things. November updates. So this Tuesday, I have a knife review coming out for you. A really cool knife. I think you're going to like this. And then I think I told you last week, there's a couple Fridays in November where I will not be live streaming. I'm working on trying to get as much content put together so I can hopefully have something for you on Friday nights, as I usually have the live stream. And I guess that's it. So tonight we're going to talk about what are some critical lessons actually that preppers can be learning from what's going on right now overseas. And I'm trying to be a little bit more careful this time about things that I say. I had a little trouble with my last video, which was really about mental health during war. But I think a couple of my keywords got me spanked by the algorithm, and my video got demonetized. And then I appealed it because there wasn't anything really controversial in there, and it got remonetized, but then it never got lifted off. Like, if your video doesn't take off in the first 72 hours or so, there's a pretty good chance it just gets buried in the basement. And that's what happened with that last video. So if you didn't get to see it, check it out. It actually is a really good video about mental health first aid in war trauma and combat trauma and how to help people with those kind of things. For those of you who don't know, my background is I'm a licensed therapist. I've been in the field for mental health for over 25 years. So I have a good bit of knowledge that I can share with the community. This is one of the strengths that I can bring to our community. It's just a shame when I do something like that is really about helping people and YouTube says, nope, you're going to the basement, buddy. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm going to be a little bit more careful about keywords here on this one. And how's my audio there, folks? Are you having any problems at all? Are you seeing anything, or are you any echoes or anything like that? Just let me know in chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it. And if at any time during the course of this stream, if you have any questions, throw them in caps. I do check chat periodically to try to catch all that. So I appreciate you all joining me here today. Let me say hi to a couple people. Vanessa Kitty and Radio Jonesy were first on the door. Appreciate you. Thank you for giving some of your Friday night to join us. Operator 357, always good to see you. Lazarus Long, Dragon Girl. And I think that's it. Oh, and for my regular mods, I put a list at the top here. I'll go ahead and read this real quick. The ones of you who are here quite often, I want you to email me, please. I put my email address up the top, but it's also usually in description. I want you to email me. I want to just do a little thank you for you mods as we're approaching the end of the year. But I need your email addresses to do that. So that's Cold War Prepper, Silver Scorpion, Maccabeus, Keith Kronk, Ungrateful Peasant, Corsair Trainers, Palmetto Prepared, Sassy Gal Prepping, that GD Bacon, and Burpee Yoga Uncle. If you guys are watching this on replay or anything like that, please go ahead and send me an email so that I can give you a little thank you. It's not much, just a little way to say thank you for always helping out. All right. So 5 things that preppers can be learning from what's going on in the war right now. And this is really all about, like, some of it will probably touch on skills. Well, actually, no, there's a big piece of skills here, but some of it is also like logistics, right? So when we talk about logistics, we're talking about like supply chain and things that you should have on hand, or if you don't already, you should probably be planning on taking care of these preps like as soon as you can afford to. I'll say it that way, as soon as you can afford to. Pennsylvania Preparedness, good to see you. Appreciate you joining in from work. No problem. I understand that. Stay safe. Stay safe. So first one is, if you've been paying attention, and I hope you've been paying attention because there's a pretty big poop going down. Water, and a way to purify water, a way to store water. The water's been cut off in Gaza. Now this is going to happen in wars. You can do that. There's nothing that's not a war crime. You're allowed to cut. Is it going to cause a lot of problems? Yeah, you bet it's going to cause a lot of problems. But water can get cut off, not just in wars, but in emergencies. And so this is probably, of all the preps that we want the prepping community to be thinking about, of all the preps, water should be number one, right? A way to purify and a way to store. You've got to get that down, right? Forget about silver and gold. Forget about the fancy flashlights. Yeah, I love all those things. If you guys watch my channel, you know I love those things. But water comes above and beyond all of that. You have to have water, right? So get that under control. What are your options? Well, the options are unlimited. I've talked about different water filters on this show. You can go and check out some of my videos. I'm not saying those are the only way to do it. You can get yourself a Berkey if your budget allows for that. If your budget doesn't allow for a Berkey, then, think about what are some of your other options. Sawyer's great. Catadin's great. I would not recommend life straws, whatever those are called. They're fine for like your bug out bags and your get home bags, but like that should not be your only way to make water safe, because you're going to get tired of sucking water out of a straw real fast. And so you got to have something a little bit above and beyond that. That can be a backup. That can absolutely be a backup for your bug out bag and your get home bag, but you got to have something that's gonna be able to handle a lot more weight and water a lot quicker, right? Or you're gonna get tired of that real fast. And ways to store. Well, let's talk about that for a second. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, if you're getting anything of value tonight, please give me a thumbs up. Yeah, we're gonna talk about some of the other stuff that's cut off too. And a way to test stored water is safe. Yeah, Vanessa Kitty, if you have any recommendations on that, definitely go ahead and throw those in there. As far as storing water, now glass is probably, for chemical free, if you're worried about that kind of thing, is the best. But yeah, you can use BPA free plastics and food safe plastics, and that's what we use here in the Sarge compound. We don't store a ton of water regularly. We have a few days worth stored because, you guys know it takes up a lot of space and it takes up a lot of weight, right? So if you have the space outdoors and you can do like one of those big outdoor containers, that's great. Make sure you're checking and treating it regularly, however you need to do that. But if you don't have that kind of space, store at least a few days worth of water for every, they say a gallon per member of the household and pet per day. I'm going to say it's more than that. If you've ever tried to live on just a gallon per day, it's not really feasible. It might keep you alive, but you're not going to be able to stay clean that much. You're not going to be able to clean your utensils. It's not enough. It's just not enough. So maybe you get into gray water or things like that for cleaning, but store, I would say a couple gallons per day per person in your household. And that includes pets as well. Right. So you can use your BPA free plastics and you can use old water jugs, just clean them out, and you might add a couple little drops of chlorine in there with it. You can buy those water bricks. You certainly don't have to. You can buy glass jugs. So what we do is we keep a couple days worth at all times. When hurricane season is around here, we amp it up and we keep a little bit more. And then if we know a storm's coming or we see some kind of emergencies on the horizon, then we really amp it up and we start filling out of our tap water. We'll start filling containers and you can use like those party lemonade things. Fill a couple of those. I've got a couple, I don't know what they're called. You find them in the camping section of like Walmart or Target. They're like big blue bricks. And I use those when I go camping, but I also can fill those up for hurricanes and things like that. and you just fill as much water as you possibly can and store that, right? So they've been without water now for over a week. That's a pretty bad situation. That's a pretty bad situation. So you don't want to be left without water and a way to purify water, right? So maybe you can collect some rainwater, but what if it doesn't rain for 3 weeks, right? Like you gotta. This is it. Number one prep. Figure out your water situation. Get what you need to make it work. And you don't have to spend a ton of money to do this. You really don't. Like Berkeys are awesome. Don't get me wrong. Berkeys are awesome, but it's not your only option. You can do Catadine. You can do Sawyer. You can do water purification tablets. You can boil water to some extent. That won't remove some things. You can, and also some of these water filters won't remove some heavy metals and things like that too. So you really got to read about the filter that you're using and know what its limitations are. And if you're like me and you live near salt water, like most of the water near me is salt water. That's a problem too, right? That's a real problem for our area. There's all of the water that's within walking distance of me is salt water or brackish. It's undrinkable basically, unless you want to go through the efforts to distill, which maybe, but it's very energy intensive to distill. Takes a long time to get a little bit of water. You got to do a lot of cleaning with that equipment. So, but if that's your only way, then you better be thinking about that too. Okay. All right. Let me check your comments here, and we'll go on to item number 2. So that was number 1. We're on item number 2 in just a second. Hill Country Prepper, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. Large drums of water require safe handling. Equipment for lifting. Yep, absolutely. Yep, and if you've got a setup like that, if you've got the space and you've got the equipment to do that, you can definitely do some stuff with rain collection and rain barrels, things like that. Be aware of your roof and what that means. Like if you have asphalt, what I'm saying is if you have asphalt shingles, then your water runoff from your roof is really probably not going to be drinkable. If you have a metal roof, it's going to be a lot easier to treat. But everybody's situation is going to be different here. Yeah, and I need to top off too. We're certainly not out, but I haven't topped off in a while. Okay, and then yes, the town is banned all well drilling, but okay, good for you. And that's a great resource to have for those of you who have wells. If you have a chlorine pool, not a saltwater pool, if you have a chlorine pool, if you're lucky enough to have that, you can do some stuff with that too, to filter that down and filter out some of the chlorine to make it more drinkable, or at least clean with it, or at least you can use it for washing your clothes and stuff like that. You've got to have some kind of way to filter though. And if you don't have that, get on that. If you're watching prepping channels and you don't have some kind of way to manage the water situation, get on it. No more procrastination on that one. It's not super expensive to come up with some solutions for this one. Yeah, and there's so in the southwest part of the United States, I know they did get a lot of rain this year, but there's going to be an ongoing. Forget about the war for a second. There's going to be an ongoing issue with water supplies down there. People need to be thinking 2 or 3 years out from like how they're going to handle that situation. My brother, for example, is in Phoenix, and the last time I went out to visit him, that reminds me, I do need to get out there and visit him. My brother's in Phoenix. Last time I was out there, I was asking him, like, what about the water shortage situation? He's like, yeah, we're all aware. City officials are aware of it. Well, what are they doing? He said, there's really not a plan. It's gonna get ugly. It's gonna get ugly. You got to have a way to boil water, especially if you have if electricity goes out and you have an electric stove, right? Now, if you have a gas stove, maybe you can continue to boil water. It depends on if the gas gets shut off or not, right? So maybe you're going to have to do it outside. Maybe you're going to have to do it over an open fire. Maybe you're going to have to do it on your propane grill. Like you've got to have a way to boil water. You have to have multiple ways to boil water. Yeah, it's best not. Yeah, and I remember a couple times in Boy Scouts we went camping at this place. I think you could still go camping there, so this is a cool place to check out if you get the chance. Off the shore of Massachusetts, there's a little island called Bumpkin Island, Bumpkin. I believe that's what it's called. It's been many, many years, like decades since I've been there. And they used to let people camp there. I don't know if they still do or not, but you had to bring in your own water. So for a Boy Scout troop of say 30 kids, 6 or 7 adults for a weekend, that's a lot of water you're going to bring in. So we had to carry it in there. We boated over to the island, and then to get to the campsite, you had to walk up this high incline trail. I remember this, and we had to carry up bucket after 5-gallon bucket after bucket full of water because we were going to need that. And we ended up using almost all of it throughout the weekend. Yeah, if you get a lot of rain's great, as long as it's not super polluted. But even then, you probably can make that work. Several methods to get to a heat source. Yep, several different ways to start a fire is good. It's now called Doing Bumps Island. Doing Bumps Island. All right, I'll have to check it out. But if you guys are in that area, if you're up in New England area, check that out if you can still camp there. Really, it was actually a really cool place, and there's ruins on the island that they're probably still there that you can explore. It was really fun. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. So I'm not going to be able to describe this on a live stream. It's something I should probably do a video for at some point. But you can make solar stills and things like that too. Actually, that's one of the things that my dad taught me with some of his survival training. You basically just need a piece of plastic. And if I could describe this, it's not going to make sense without being able to show you. But so think of this as the ground level. You cut so you cut a hole into the ground level, right? So better like that. Okay, so like that. Think of like a hole into the ground level, and then you're going to run a piece of plastic across that, and you put something to like partially weigh down the center part of it, and then inside there you can put greenage, foliage, things like that. And what that will do is there's water that's trapped in those plants. It will evaporate, and then as it evaporates, it collects on the top of the plastic, and because you've got a little weight there, it'll collect into the center point, and then you have a little can or a cup or something down there, and it drips down into there. You can actually distill water that way. It's very, very slow. You're not going to get a ton of water, but it's good to know those things for a survival situation. Plum Island. Is that the one where they were doing the animal testing, the animal disease testing, Vanessa? That's a good suggestion, Vanessa, right there. Yep. So you heard of that one, Suburban Prepper. Okay, cool. Scorpion Metals, thank you for joining me. Appreciate you. Thank you for everybody who just banned everything. Thank you for everybody who just popped in. All right, let's go to number 2. Let's go to number 2. So if you don't know how to do some of this stuff, get on it now. Seriously, like everybody knows what's going on in the world. Things are going to get worse, right? Like things are going to get worse. How much worse? I don't know. When? I don't know. I can't tell you that. And any channel that's trying to tell you that they have secret information is lying. They're lying. So all we can tell you is that it's going to get worse, and you need to get on this now. If you're watching prepping channels, you probably are already on it, or maybe you're brand new to this. But this is one not. There's things you could probably procrastinate on. This is not one of them. All right. So next thing is food, of course, right? So food, we can go a long time without food. You can go more than weeks, believe it or not. But you're going to start paying the price after a couple days, right? So you're going to start getting very weak. You're going to start getting cloudy, foggy mind. So you're not going to be able to make decisions well. You're going to have a harder time sleeping if you're hungry. You're going to get agitated. You could have other issues from nutritional deficiency, depending on your particular health. People with blood sugar issues and things like that could be in real trouble. So you've got to have multiple contingencies for food, right? And This can start with, if you're on a tight budget, this can start with copy canning. Although you're brand new to prepping, you know what that is. That's okay. We're going to explain it. Copy canning is when you go to the grocery store, and let's say you usually buy 3 cans of chicken noodles. Well, buy 5, buy 6, buy a couple extra and throw 3 of them back. And each time you go, you're adding a little bit more, and you're adding a little bit more, and you're buying stuff, buy food that you like, food that's going to stay good for a really long time on the shelf, right? Very long time for canned goods if they're stored well. You can get some boxed pastas and some canned red sauce. You can get honey stays good forever. Molasses, I believe, stays good forever. Get some dried beans, get some dried rice, get some what else? And then beyond that, so that's all stuff that you can get at the grocery store. So then beyond that, then you maybe, if your budget allows, you're going to start to supplement with some longer term food storage, right? Like, so companies like Mountain House, Four Patriots, Nutrient Survival, those companies, and there's several others, I'm just blanking on them. They make foods that will last 30 years or longer. They're more pricey, right? So you're going to pay a little bit more for that stuff. But if your budget allows for it, not a bad idea to put some of that in the pantry as well, right? So if we got into a situation where food was not going to be available for a while, maybe you're going to pull from your canned goods first, because that, in theory, they expire sooner. That's very debatable. I would say that their nutritional quality deteriorates over time. So you can eat, if it's been stored correctly and there's no dents or rust in it, you can eat a can of peaches that's 10, 12 years old. But I believe the nutritional deficiency is probably going to go way down at that point. So start with your canned goods, and then you might go into your longer term stuff. Maybe you supplement some MREs. Why do I talk about MREs on this channel? Yeah, MREs are going to be pricey if you don't have a source that's finding them kicked off the truck, if you know what I mean. So MREs are going to be pricey. But the reason I like to have MREs as part of our prepper pantry is they can be thrown in a car, a bug out bag, a get home bag. They tolerate extreme temperatures really well, right? So for us, for Sarge and his family, that's part of our prepper pantry as well. What else? We need multiple contingencies. We said, okay, do you hunt? Do you fish? Do you know how to make a few basic snares and traps? Do you garden? Do you know how to forage? Okay. Well, if you don't, that's okay. There's my channel and tons of other channels out here in the prepping community that will show you how to do all of these things. But you shouldn't delay. You should start learning some of this. And skills are free. Remember that, we can learn. There's tons and tons of stuff you can learn on YouTube for free. There's some things you can't learn through YouTube. We're going to get to that here in a little bit. But there's tons of stuff that you can learn from YouTube for free. Watch some of my foraging videos. Go out and try to learn some of that on your own. Every day, you should be exercising every day anyways. So when you're going out for your walk or whatever, try to find some edible plants. Try to learn 5 at first. If once you got 5 and you know them down and you could spot them, try to go for 10. Once you got 10, go for 15. And then once you got that down, start thinking about, I want to be able to spot 15 every season, right? Winter, spring, summer, fall. Because your wild edibles are going to change through the seasons, right? So can you do that? Can you do 20, right? So you just work your way up. I can spot and identify by memorization without going to my books, probably about between 50 and 75 wild edibles spread throughout the course of the year for my area. Now, if you send me out to the Northwest, I'm not going to be as lucky because I don't know all the plants out there, right? So you got to know your area first. And then if you have a bug out location, you should probably be learning that as well, right? Remember, your bug out location it's not necessarily like a place in the woods. Your bug out location might be your cousin's house, your sister's house, your brother's house, your father's house. It could be a hotel somewhere. Your bug out location isn't always like some remote camp that you have built in the Appalachian Mountains. For most people, that's not realistic. All right, let's check your chat here. I see some good suggestions popping up, actually, for food. Get out there and practice the skills, Vanessa Kitty says. Absolutely. And it's fun. It's not work. When I go out for a walk, I have a blast looking for wild edibles. It's one of my favorite things to do, actually. And yeah, I like to do other things. I like to play video games. I like to watch movies. I like to read. But I have a lot of fun going out hiking and looking for wild edibles. It's one of my favorite things to do. That's a good suggestion right there. Using a clean sponge or a clean rag to gather water off of leaves early in the morning, right after sunrise. That might be the difference for survival for somebody. I don't know how far apart they are. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna scroll back down. Hang on. Yeah, and diabetics needs are going to be different, and people with allergies and gluten allergies and things like that, your needs are going to be different. I have a food allergy that is there's certain things I can't have. I've talked about this before. My wife is a vegetarian. I'm a omnivore. I eat everything, almost everything, and she's a vegetarian. So in my preps, when I order, because I do the ordering for this stuff, when I order emergency food, I take into account her preferences. Now, before we start getting into jokes about vegetarians and stuff, yeah, I think if everybody's hungry enough, they're going to eat whatever. If I get hungry enough, I'm going to eat earthworms. Do I want to eat earthworms? No. I really don't want to eat earthworms. But if I'm starving and that's going to keep me alive, I bet you I would do it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I mean, and I talked about snares and traps earlier. A lot of states have laws against that, but if you're in a survival situation, do what you got to do. So with flour and things like that, just make sure it's stored really well. And those have like flour can have some weird things go on after a while. Um, my wife, who's the chef in the family, could talk to that more better than I could, but um, not just bugs. Like flour can get bugs, but there's also like what's it called? It not fermenting, but there's something that happens with it where it can go bad and it can make you like really sick. Think about stacking food like silver. Yeah, so if you can spread it around, that's not a bad idea. Um, get creative, right? So if you have a mutual agreement with another family member or a friend that like if there's a problem in their area, they can come to you. If there's a problem in your area, you can go to them. Maybe you guys also take that conversation a little bit further and say, "Hey, can I store a few things here?" Right? Obviously, everybody's got limited space in their homes, so you might not be able to, but maybe you have some food cached somewhere, right? Some people have storage lockers and things like that. Maybe you cache a little bit of food at your workplace if you can. Depends on your situation, right? Think outside the box, right? Maybe you can keep some MREs in your car and rotate those a little bit. There's all kinds of different ways to spread that food around. Freeze dryers are awesome. Definitely a little bit pricey if you're looking for a budget option. Freeze dryers are awesome. I would love to have one myself. I don't have one. But if you're looking for a budget option and you really can't justify that one right now, a dehydrator is also a really is also a really good option. Now, dehydrated food is not going to last as long as freeze dried food, but it will last a couple years if you store it correctly, airtight containers away from direct sunlight in climate control. Dehydrated food will last at least a couple of years. And if you're growing a garden, it's a good idea to get a dehydrator if you can't afford a freeze dryer. Or canning, right? Think about if you haven't learned how to canning. Canning's great. I used to do a lot of canning. I've cut back on that because it's like an all-day affair. You are pretty much bound to your kitchen all day long when you're canning. For me, dehydrating is an easier way to go. You set it and you can go and work on another project. Um, and then you just, when it's done, you put it into an airtight container. You can use mason jars or those Wallaby sealable food bags, whatever. And it's going to be good for a few years. You can dehydrate all kinds of stuff, mushrooms, vegetables, whatever. You can, I made jerky with it one time. You can learn how to make, was it biltong? Is that what's called? It's like a really easy to make jerky. Um, and I like stuff like that too, Rusty, especially for like my bug out bag and my get home bag. And I just rotate them because they're easy, quick. I don't have to start a fire to eat those and get some energy in me and keep going. Kentucky, it's good to see you, my friend. Hope you're having a good night. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, man. Everything. But quiet hunting is, especially if you're trying to maintain a low profile. Air rifle is a great option for that. Bow and arrow, crossbow, slingshots. Yeah, slingshots. Slingshots is great for small game, squirrels, things like that, raccoons. You know, have you ever eaten a squirrel? It's okay. It's not my preferred food. I'd rather have a steak, but it's not the worst thing in the world either. I'll tell you that. Good idea to store some spices, right? This is why I talk about when I talk about the gardening videos. Garlic, grow garlic, dill, oregano, basil, rosemary, and a mint, right? If you grow different spices and herbs, you can flavor up a lot of stuff. So if I have to eat squirrel, I would at least want to have some garlic and oregano to do something with it so it tastes a little better. Just catching all your comments here, guys. Planting some, chanterelles are great. I love chanterelle mushrooms. And if you want to learn how to forage mushrooms, chanterelles are a good one to learn with because they're super easy to identify. They're probably the easiest mushroom to identify. And they only have one look-alike, and it's not really even a look-alike, and that's the jack-o'-lantern. So I've done a couple videos on chanterelle mushrooms as well. You could dehydrate the chanterelles. They should dehydrate okay. Blackberries, if you plant them, they tend to spread on their own. They tend to propagate on their own over time. So if you've got a little bit of land that you own or land that you have access to, think about planting some blackberries and maybe some blueberries and things like that tend to grow and spread among themselves, right? Really great for having fresh fruit in your backyard, you know? Persimmon tree, I love that. Fruit trees are fantastic. The only problem with fruit trees is they take a long time to grow, right? To rent offsite storage for water and food. So when you sneak it under the so if you mean like a storage locker or something like that, a lot of preppers do that. And the food, water and food, and you can store whatever you want in there. You know, it's you're renting it, you lock it up, you're just taking a chance that somebody could break in there and steal your stuff. But if you've got pallets of water in there under normal times, somebody might break in there and they'll be like, this is stupid. There's only pallets of water here. So that's not a bad thought, right? Like, because people breaking into those things, they're looking for jewelry and firearms and other things that have a lot more value in most time, in normal times, right? So yeah, that's not a bad idea for caching some preps or storage, right? It's just how much do you want to pay? That's what it comes down to. All right, moving on to number 3. So electricity's also been cut off in Gaza, and it's reasonable to assume that in any wartime scenario, power is going to go out at least intermittently in areas that are under attack, at least intermittently, if not for a long time. So what do you need realistically? You're going to want to have some flashlights at minimum, and I recommend headlamps because if you wear a headlamp, you can your hands are free to do other stuff, but you might want to have a headlamp and a flashlight so there's a backup for every person in the household, maybe multiple. We like to store them all around the house so that the power goes out, there's always a flashlight within like 10 feet of us. And what about when the batteries go down? Well, you get yourself some rechargeable batteries, and you get yourself a solar panel, and you get yourself a solar generator. Okay, let's talk about this for a minute. And this is a big budget item, so I know a lot of people can't do this right away. It's something that you might have to save up for if you don't have the money for it, but it's a good prep. So you get yourself a solar generator, right? And I used to have a company that I was working with here. I think they're out of business, so I haven't been promoting them in a while. But we'll say Jackery, Blue Eddy, I think is another one. For Patriots makes one. There's a couple different brands out there you can get, and they have limitations. You need to know that, right? So people think, oh, solar generator, can I run an air conditioning on it? Not unless it's huge. Not it's realistic. I've shown you tests of that before. Not unless it's huge. Can you run a space heater on it? No, not unless it's huge and has a lot of capacity. They are not built for high wattage items. They're just not. So what good are they, Sarge? Well, you can charge your phone with it. You can recharge your rechargeable batteries with it. You can run string lights off of it. You can run fans off of it. Your radios and your comms. You can run your laptop off of it. So it still has a lot of good uses. And you can, depending on the size of it, some of them will run a freezer off and on. So we tested that, and ours is 1,000 watts, which is kind of medium sized. They make them 2,000 is decent sized, and then I've seen a few that are bigger than that, 3,000, 4,000. So with ours, which is 1,000 watt, we can run our freezer off and on for about a day and a half before the solar bank would have to be recharged. And we've got the panels that we could recharge it, assuming there's sunlight, right? So flashlights would be a minimum, some kind of lighting. You may want to add fans to that. What else? There's all kinds of little appliances that you can run off. There's an ice machine. There's ice machines they make that can run off of those little solar power banks, solar power stations. Ice might be a really nice morale booster if it's 100 degrees out, right? Ice might be like the thing that keeps you from screaming at your family. So that's a good little prep to have. Is it a first priority? No. Is it nice to have? Yes. Radio, listening for emergency radio broadcasts and things like that. Maybe you're running comms with your neighbors, right? Maybe you've got a fleet of walkie-talkies. You set them all on the same comms. You charge them up because you're the one that's got the solar bank and the solar panels, and you give them to neighbors and say, let's stay in communication. Let us know if you see any looters in the area. Let us know if you see any violence going on in the area, right? That increases your security a whole lot more when you've got 20 people watching the neighborhood instead of just you and your spouse. Just stuff to think about. Again, not first priority preps, but sure would come in handy in a situation like you got behind you. Solar power banks, yep, and you can get the little ones. Those work too. Again, these things just take a little while to charge up, but they do work. They're not bad preps to have if you've got the budget for it, right? But even if you can't afford that right now, if I couldn't afford to have a solar power bank, I would at least want to have flashlights for everybody in my family, maybe some of those little battery-powered camping lanterns, and a good supply of batteries. Now, batteries, the newer batteries, like not the rechargeable ones, but just like regular Duracells and Energizers, if you get the name brand, will last 10 years. That's pretty good. And then just rotate them every couple of years. You buy another pack, right? And then it's just for not that much money. That's a really, imagine being the only one in your neighborhood that thought ahead to do that, and you can give a couple flashlights out, and now you've got a couple people who've got your back because you were a good neighbor, and maybe they can help you keep an eye on the neighborhood as well, right? If you're going to go really big budget beyond that, if you've got like pie in the sky budget, what else would I do with that power bank? Drone, because aerial surveillance is going to increase your security in your neighborhood quite a bit. And you could recharge that through your solar power bank. And if you really got the big budget, if you got the moolah, night vision goggles would be a game changer. You own the night in a situation like that. Like, look behind us. There's people living there right now in that area. There's no power. If you've got night vision goggles, you are seeing what nobody else can see. And that is a game changer. That is a game changer, but it's expensive. Okay. And if you don't get the really expensive ones, if you don't know much about this, I know the military people do. The military people in chat know what I'm talking about. It has an infrared light. The older generation models, which are the more affordable ones, they give off. So anyone else with night vision goggles is going to see you like a beacon. The newer ones have much less profile and they don't give off that light. So if you've ever used them, and you put yours on, you can see, especially if it's the older generation ones, the more affordable ones, you can see everybody else who has them on. People who don't have them can't see you because that infrared is not visible. But there's something to be aware of. Still kind of a nice prep if you've got the budget for it. All right. Yeah. And maybe you think about your EMP bags and building your own Faraday cage and stuff like that if you want to go down that route. If you had asked me about that a couple weeks ago, I would have said, no, I'm not really too worried about that. Given recent events, I take it a little bit more seriously now, because this situation is not. I don't see it de-escalating. Unfortunately, I think this is things going to get worse. All right, let me roll back here a little bit before I go on to the next one. So we did water, we did food, we did lighting. We're going on to number 4 here in a second. Yeah, Jackery makes pretty good products. I would put my faith behind them. In fact, if I was going to buy another one, that might be the way that I might go. Angie, it's good to see you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Fig tree is good suggestion there. And ban everything. Any suggestion on how to make squirrel more palatable for those of us who didn't find it that great? Rechargeable light bulbs, good suggestion there. Yeah, I've got tons and tons of flashlights, and the idea for me is not that I need them. I want to be able to, if we have a lights out, if we have a blackout situation here in my neighborhood, I want to be not just that I've got enough for me and my household, but I want to be able to help out the people in my neighborhood that that we have good relationships with, right? Again, expanding your support group, that kind of thing. Vision, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Yep. Yeah, and the problem with those storage units is most of them are just using like a people are just locking them with like a master lock or something like that. And those are really easy to pick, guys. Like it's you know, and you or bolt cutters, like they're super easy to get those off. Um, if you know, the more expensive storage places probably are going to be, you know, those are the ones that are going to have somebody on site and cameras and things like that. But most of your like self storage kind of, I'll call it self storage. People just have stuff in there, and it's just a padlock that's very easy to crack. But yeah, if you only got water in there, no chances pretty good. Nobody in good times, nobody's going to steal your water. There you go. That's some good preparedness right there. Good job. There you go, suburban prepper. So glad you said that. So people with solar panels on their house, that doesn't mean that your power is going to stay on if there's a blackout, unless you've got the battery backup too. You have to have a way to cycle that power and store it. Power bank with broken charging plugs, pretty long lasting flashlights. Okay, gotcha. Bicycles is good for getting around. Yep. And maybe you live out in the countryside, and maybe you've got space to think about a horse too. I wonder how many people in the prepping community know how to ride horses. I know how to ride a horse. I lived in Kentucky for 10 years. Kentucky is horse country. I can walk, trot, and canter. I am not confident with galloping. I have galloped. I know how to do it. I'm not confident with it. And running. But I can cantering's pretty fast pace, and I'm very comfortable with cantering. So if you don't know the difference, they're just like different paces of the horse. Yeah, having some comms around, and then you know, even just basics. Like I'm not even talking about like ham radio, right? Just like walkie talkies. And if you had those, and something like this goes on, you're gonna be able to hand out comms to the people in your neighborhood. And again, now you've got 20 sets of eyes instead of 2 sets of eyes. Bringing in intel, right? What are we seeing? Is there looters? Is there riots going on? Is there violence happening? What do we need to do? Do we need to exit this area? Do we need to move to a different area? Do we need to respond to the violence? We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Emergency upgrade for tiny areas is a must here in Louisiana. Yeah, and I'm in South Carolina. Ban everything. It's a concern here as well. I've never tried our solar bank with like one of those the newer air conditioners that are like the floor air conditioners. I don't know how well that would work. We have a lot of fans, and we have battery rechargeable fans and things like that. That, if you combine it with ice, makes it survivable. Not nearly as good as central air conditioning, but it's survivable. Yeah, it's a good idea to have a bike. Absolutely. I agree with you all. Lee, it's good to see you. Appreciate you. Thank you for popping in. Looks like everybody's got, I like that you all have those power banks. That's good. It's good. You guys are you're all smart. Yep, same for us. Lee, we switched 90% of our flashlight fleet to some kind of rechargeable system a few years ago. We still have some of the other ones that are just like straight. I like to have both. So we have some that are like AAA powered and AA powered, but I like to have both. Anchor's another one that makes those solar power stations. Captain Beardo, thank you for joining us. All right, pressure cooking the squirrel is what was recommended. All right, try to remember that. There you go, right there. And you know what else they have in Kentucky is a lot of Amish people. And if anyone knows how to live off grid, it's the Amish people and the Mennonites. Oh, okay. I didn't think of that. That's a good suggestion right there, Ben. Everything, the rice cookers and the little hot plates and things like that. Yep. And also camping stoves. And even like as a backup, like a last resort, even those mini ones, though I use those when I go camping and they work pretty good. I'm not even talking about the propane ones, although those, the jet boil and stuff like that, those are good too. But like the ones that use heat tabs or any kind of fuel, right? So you can use twigs and leaves and things like that. Now I did some experimenting with it. The heat tabs work really good. When you're using like little twigs and stuff like that, you pretty much are going to have to keep feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. But yes, I can get water to boil and I can cook things by using those little mini foldable camp stoves. Yep. Good setup there. You're smart. You're smart. Yeah, and we can learn a lot from the homeless too, because that's a good suggestion there too. They know where to find shelter. They know where to find food. They know where to find fresh water a lot of times. But if there's a lot of homeless in my city. If you just pay attention to them, a lot of people turn their head when they see homeless. A lot of people, they're invisible to people. But if you pay attention to them, you'll see like what buildings they're going into. And there's a lot of abandoned buildings around in a city. And I've done a video about this a long time ago. I haven't talked about it in a while. There is a right way and a wrong way to approach a place like that. You do, because somebody may be squatting. So if you do urbex, if you like to go into abandoned places and stuff like that, my recommendation is to like speak kind of loudly from the outside and say, hey, anybody home? Just looking for a place to get in from the rain or whatever. Let them know, I'm not police or anything like that. Because a lot of times these guys are used to being kicked out of wherever they are, obviously. And sometimes there's violence that happens against the homeless too. So they have to be careful and protect themselves as well. Most homeless people that I've ever talked to carry knives. You should know that. And they are willing to protect themselves. They're not just going to, give up their shelter because you decided it. So approach with, some kindness in your heart and say like, hey, I'm not here to cause any trouble. I just want to come in from the rain. Can I come in? That kind of thing. If nobody's in there, they're probably not going to answer you. And if you still never know, so be careful when you're walking in, check your corners and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're a lot more prepped than people think. And I think bacon, I think a lot of people have them for things like that and travel and camping and things like that. And it's a great thing for power outages. I appreciate you. How you doing, Daniela? How's Canada right now? Are you getting any snow yet? SHTFPreparation is a great suggestion, and I keep one in all of our bug out bags and in all of our get home bags. If you don't know what that is, you can get it at any hardware store. Just ask for a SHTFPreparation. And if you look outside of buildings, if you look outside of buildings, usually around the back, there's a place where the people who work in those buildings can hook up a hose, and it's locked, usually locked. A silcock key will open those up. And don't do that unless it's a survival situation, of course, because you're going to get somebody really angry if you start using a silcock key on their water spigot. But in a survival situation, yep, I would absolutely do that. There you go. Yep. That's smart. That's smart. Just that little bit of heat probably made the difference for him. All right, let's go on to number 3. And no, I did 3. That was lighting. So we did food, we did water, food, lighting. Number 4, first aid and medicine. Okay, so first aid and medicine. So again, looking at the city behind us, they are running out of medical supplies. They are running out of medicine. They're running out of space. I've talked about my emergency surgery a few years ago that I had. So part of my aftercare for that was I had to change bandages daily, and the wound was about that big where the incision was. And not trying to get gross on you or anything like that, but you should know some basic first aid. You go through bandages way more than you think. So you may have a couple packs of gauze and a couple triangle bandages and things like that. Whatever you have, buy 30 times more of it to whatever your budget will allow, and learn how to also makeshift bandages from clean sheets and things like that. Because if you need it, you're going to need way more than you think you need. And I learned that after my surgery. Like, I thought I had a lot of first aid supplies, and in 30 days, I went through a ton of bandages because it had to keep my wound had to keep being changed. The dressing had to keep being changed. So whatever you think you need tons more. And this is a prep that I think a lot of preppers neglect. Same thing with medicine, right? So we've talked about medicine a lot on this channel, but let's talk about it again. How do you prep for medicine? What if you've got diabetes? What if you've got seizures? What if you've got a high cholesterol? What if you've got asthma? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can try filling your scripts a few days early if your insurance will allow that. You can talk to your doctor and see if he'll cut you a script for 2 months supply or 3 months supply, and filling a couple days early. So little by little, you're building up a backup supply of your medications. Or thank you, Jace Medical, who came to the rescue on this situation. You can go on to Jace Medical, and the link is in the description down below, and you can get a 12-month supply of many medications. Do they have all of them? No. Do they have a lot of them? Yes. They have medications for diabetes and seizures and depression and schizophrenia and cholesterol and heart disease and all kinds of chronic chronic conditions that require life-saving medications. Asthma. Get yourself a 12-month supply. Money well spent, because you're going to spend it over the course of a year anyways. And then just keep rotating your medications, and it's money you would spend anyways. You're just spending it up front. That is money well spent. And by the way, Jace also does gift cards. So if you have a family member that you know struggles financially and they're dependent on life-saving medications, guess what you could get them for Christmas this year? A gift card to Jace Medical, and solve that problem for them, right? Also learn your medicinal medication, your medicinal plants and things like that. I am one of those people that operates in both worlds. Yes, I believe in modern medicine. Yes, I believe in plant medicine. No, both. But I will tell you, and this is personal opinion, people are going to disagree with me, and that's okay. My personal opinion is that plant medicine has limitations that modern medicine can surpass in many areas. Modern medicine can sometimes have side effects that plant medication might not have. So there's pros and cons to both, but know how to do both, right? So me being an asthmatic, what plants would I want to have? Well, I would want to have rosemary, garlic, and mullein. I never pronounce it right. Those are 3 that are going to help with lungs, right? So learn how to distill them, learn how to make tinctures, right? Get the equipment that you need. This is all stuff that you can do over time. But in the beginning, when you don't have that much money, I would at least learn how to identify those plants. That's a start. Learn how to make a tea with those plants. That's not going to cost you that much. That's a start. So being caught without medical supplies is a tragedy. So it's number 4 on the list, but you could make a good case that maybe that needs to be ahead of lighting, depending on your situation. So we've done water, food, lighting, and first aid and medicine. First aid and medicine is 4. We're going to get to the 5th one here in just a second. Let me check your comments again real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Oh man, Vanessa, I'm so sorry to hear that. Did you check Jace Medical to see if it's an option, to see if they have your meds? Yep, and if you're insulin, correct me if I'm wrong, you need to have a way to keep that refrigerated. So now you might really need to be thinking about a large capacity solar generator or something, or a multi-fuel generator or something like that. So so Vanessa, not to get too personal in your situation, but check on Jace Medical, see if they've got your medications. They might be able to help you. And the idea is, right, like I have asthma. I can't store a 10-year supply of asthma medicine. I mean, maybe I could if I had enough money. I could make that happen. But it's probably not realistic for me. The longer I can prepare, the better my chances that some semblance of normalcy will be restored. And then maybe in 6 months, I can get my medicine from a pharmacy again. Or maybe I've moved to a safer part of the world at that point where I can get my medicine, right? So it's the idea is buying yourself as much time as you possibly can, not necessarily. I know the prepper fantasy is to like live forever in this cabin in the woods. Well, that's not realistic for a lot of people. For some people, maybe, but for a lot of people, it's not. So the idea for me, what I teach here on my channel is buying yourself as much time as you possibly can to improve your situation, maybe get off the X, maybe some semblance of normalcy is restored down the road. Definitely books and entertainment, puzzles, things like that. I saw that, Rusty. Thank you. Oh man, all his ban everything and lost all his medicinal plants. I'm so sorry. Vanessa, I'm so sorry to read all that. Yeah, Jace Medical, they're in there. There's a link to it in the description, and there's a discount code there as well, too, Bacon. Well, Vanessa, I hope that your situation, I hope, first of all, I hope none of us need these preps. I hope none of us need these preps. I hope a situation like this doesn't happen in the United States. But I hope that you can get what you need and that this situation doesn't come up for any of us. All right, last prep. This one's going to be a little bit controversial for some people. We're gonna talk about it anyway. Self-defense. I don't talk about this one this much on this channel. I am personally pro 2A. This is not a 2A channel. I don't get into this stuff too much, but we're going to talk a little bit about it right now. So if you've been watching the news this week, some of the stories. So first of all, people may not know this, but in Israel, over the last few years, there was a push to reduce civilian ownership of guns, right? And so there was a lot less guns owned by private citizens than there would have been, say, maybe 10 years ago. The people that had firearms in the areas that got attacked, a lot of them are coming forward with their stories, and they put up resistance, and they because these groups were separating into smaller and smaller squads and moving around. So 12, I don't know how many people came in from Hamas. I don't know. 2,000, 1,500, whatever. But then as they were moving, they were going into smaller and smaller squads. So a group of 4 people, you can resist that. a group of, with some training, right? We're going to talk about the training piece of this in a second. A group of 12 people, if you and your neighbors are coordinating, you can resist that, because the defenders always have an advantage against the attackers. This is known in military studies. At minimum, it's considered a 5-to-1 advantage. In urban settings, it's considered like a 20-to-1 advantage. Okay. Who knows the territory? Who knows the streets? Who knows the windows? Who knows the hiding spots, right? If you've been walking around your neighborhood, that ought to be you, right? So let's say that you and 5 other people in your neighborhood are fairly well armed and have some good training. You can put up a pretty good fight for your neighborhood. If there's 10 of you, yeah, you can put up a hell of a fight, right? So the answer to the question, and you can disagree with me, I always welcome disagreement here. The answer to the question is of who needs or nobody needs an AR-15 until your city's attacked. And then it sure would be nice to have one, right? Until you have terrorists running through your streets, killing people. Then it sure would be nice to have one, because the police response time isn't going to be there, and the National Guard isn't going to be there, and calling 911 isn't going to do jack crap for you, right? Yep, I see a couple of you left. That's okay. I knew I was going to offend a couple of people with this, but it needs to be said. Now, you make the decision that makes the most sense for you. And if you don't like pew pew pews, that's okay. I respect your decision, but I would be thinking about what other options are you willing to have? Pepper spray, knives, clubs, baseball bats, whatever. I would not recommend that any prepper not have some defenses in place, some plan, right, to defend your household and, if need be, your neighborhood. Because the people who had that were able to put down some of the attackers and save lives. There's no arguing with that. It's a fact. Facts don't care about your feelings. Sorry. What kind of training should you get? Well, if you've been in the military, you probably have had some good training, so you just got to keep up with it. For somebody like me who's not military, I will tell you some of the trainings that I've had. I've had Appleseed. Let me know in chat if you know what Appleseed training is. We'll come back to that in a second. So I've had Appleseed training. I used to compete in IDPA, which is the International Defensive Pistol Association. And I've had some private training with some other people. So what are the things that you would want to know? Well, you should probably need to, first of all, you need whatever you're using for your weapon, you need to know that inside and out. You need to know how to tear it down, put it back together, how to clean it, how to handle a malfunction. You need to be practicing with it enough that you can put some tight groupings. If it's a pistol, you're going to want to be able to do that minimum of 30 feet. If it's a rifle, minimum of, I'll say 100 feet for defensive purposes. The further out you can go than that, better, obviously. But you need to be pretty accurate with that. If you're just a civilian who's just thinking about your own personal safety, those would be the minimum distances that I would think. You need to know what things are. Some things are like slicing the pie, how to create a fatal funnel, how to do an L-shaped ambush, how to do a flank, how to do a pincher maneuver, how to do retention reload, how to do a tap rack assess. If you don't know what those things are, then you haven't trained enough. Sorry, get the training, practice it, and more, and do all those things, right? And then do them some more. You should be able, if you're gonna own those kind of tools, you should be able to do those things. Buying it and putting it in the closet and taking it to the range once, not going to cut it. Buying it, practicing regularly, training regularly, learning new skills. I used to compete in airsoft, and airsoft, when I was in that, my teammates, a lot of them were former military infantry guys. Guess where I learned a lot of stuff? Guess how I learned how to breach? Guess where I learned slicing the pie? Guess how I learned leapfrogging? Guess how I learned how to run an Overwatch? Right? If you don't know what those things are, go learn them. And I'm not going to be the guy to teach you, because I'm not qualified to be a teacher. I know enough of the basics from me. I'm not qualified to cover that stuff on this channel. Go check out Corsair Trainers. He's a teacher. Go check out Wayne, the ungrateful peasant, and his other channel is Becoming Dangerous. You know, now I don't recommend you learn only from YouTube, obviously, but it might get you started and then take your classes. You gotta train with a trainer who's going to watch over you and say you're doing this wrong because XYZ. You can't get that feedback from YouTube. That's why I don't recommend teaching, people learning martial arts from YouTube. Can you learn, excuse me, can you learn a few things? Yes. Can you improve a few things from watching martial arts videos on YouTube? Yes. But you're not going to get what you need because you need an instructor who's more qualified than you to watch you and say, no, you're doing it wrong. You're crouching up your shoulders. You need to drop them. Your guard needs to be up higher, right? These things you can't really get that feedback from YouTube. So, Corsair Trainers, go check out his channel. He's an instructor. He'll get you started, and then go take some classes, right? So, all right, let me check chat, and then we're gonna start winding this one down. And I appreciate everybody giving me some of your Friday, joining me. And again, we hope this never happens here. We really do. This is terrible. I don't ever want to see something like this on U.S. soil. But is it possible? Yeah. Could the United States be occupied? I don't believe under current conditions it could be, but we could be attacked for sure, and we have been, and we could be again. Could we be occupied? I don't personally think that that's possible under current technology in the current state of affairs. Not for a long period of time, anyways. Oh, you got the big toys, my friend. You got the big toys. I'm jealous. All right. Yes, and that's something that we lack here in the United States. And I think a lot of people have made good arguments that maybe we should have mandatory military service here in the United States. I tried to enlist after graduate school because my background is in psychology. I actually wanted to go into the PsyOps program, and because of my asthma, I was refused by 2 recruiters. I wanted to do that. My dad was 82nd Airborne. I wanted to stay with that legacy, but for me, it wasn't really an option. So I went down the route of helping my country in other ways by trying to be the best clinician I can. And I work with first responders, and I work with veterans, and I've worked with other populations too. But maybe there should be a way for all United States citizens to serve. Something to think about. It's not for me to decide. Oh, that was nice of you, ban everything. Helping the bunny. Yeah, and if you're gonna get it, then be serious about it. So many people go, well, I gotta have a firearm. Okay, so they go and they get a box of ammo. They go to the range. They shoot 1 box of ammo, and they never do anything else with it. Not good. Bacon. And yeah, I had a feeling, Vanessa Kitty, that you had some good experience. I had a feeling based on some of the comments I've seen from you over the months. Um, the If you are absolutely refusing to carry, and I get it, I understand some people are not comfortable with that. Learn first aid then, at least. Maybe you can help somebody. If you're not willing to be the one that's gonna commit violence when violence needs to be committed, at least be one of the people that can help after the violence is done. Yeah, and making your target, making your house and your neighborhood a harder target would be absolutely a good idea. Okay, that sounds like fun, Vanessa Katie. Dove season, good to see you. Yeah, we're gonna ban everything. We're gonna do at some point in the future. I'm gonna do video about perimeter alarms and I'm talking about like primitive ones that people can make themselves. You know what I'm talking about. I'm going to probably do that on one of my camping trips and like set it up around my campsite to show people how it can be done with very, very low cost items and often stuff that you can scavenge. But yeah, for your home, cameras, perimeter alarms, motion detectors, motion detecting lights. Hey, Judy May Collins, good to see you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Train, then train when we haven't trained. When you've trained, keep training. So nobody got Appleseed. Let me talk about what that is real quick. Okay. And then I'll call it a night. So if you get a chance to train with Appleseed, Project Appleseed is what it's called. You can look them up later on. Project Appleseed teaches you how to fire a rifle long distance from prone positions. Okay. From laying down, and how to properly use the I'm having a brain fart. That's the ADD. I'm sorry. It's going to come to me later. I'm not going to get it right now. I can tell you. But they'll teach you how to stabilize sling. For some reason, the word wasn't coming to me. Sling. How to properly use a sling to stabilize your shot, to create more points of contact and things like that. So Project Appleseed is fantastic training for long range shooting and getting into concealed positions and things like that. And they are all around the country, and they do competitions and things like that. They throw in a little bit of Revolutionary War history with it. So they're also tied in with the Revolutionary War Veterans Association. I think that's the name of it. But if you get a chance to train with Project Appleseed, money well spent, and you will have a blast. You'll have a really good time. You're going to come away from there feeling like you're an operator. You won't be, but you'll be a lot better off than when you started, for sure. All right. Yeah, I'm going to call it a night here too, Pentucky. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining. If you got anything of value tonight, please consider giving me a thumbs up. Don't forget to check in the links down below for all kinds of discount codes on products that you might like. And if you're brand new to the channel, hey, maybe you want to join the channel and be part of Sarge's squad. I really appreciate you. Thank you also to the mods for coming to hang out tonight. Again, if you didn't see that message at the top, mods, send me an email with just send me an email and say, hey, it's bacon or whatever. I'm working on just a little thank you for all you who help out on the channel regularly. So appreciate you, and the rest of you, I appreciate you for joining me as well. Let's stay safe, everybody. Hopefully this situation doesn't go on for a very long period of time, because the longer it goes on, the more dangerous it's going to get for the entire world. All right. And get outside this weekend, hug your loved ones, and be grateful for the times of peace when we do have it. Okay. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge.